it's hard to get out of the box, and unless you meet other people, and that's what happens to this guy. He ends up meeting a bunch of other people, human beings that live in a different world than his, and he has to live in that world, and then he realizes, okay, well, maybe I was wrong about a few things.
How you doing today, Dolph?
Hey, Grant, good, thanks.
I'm very excited to chat with you. Obviously, you are a legend in the field, but I'm also excited to talk about Wanted Man. It really is quite the interesting thriller from you, and obviously, you're writing this, you're directing this, you're starring in it. Where did the concept really first come about for you?
Thank you. Originally, it was a movie kind of inspired by that Clint Eastwood picture called The Gauntlet, which was in the '70s, where he takes up as an interstate transfer of a prisoner. And then, so I kind of toyed with the idea of making it an extradition for Mexico instead. But then I got caught up in a bunch of, in the Expendables series and a bunch of other things I did. And, 10 years later, I revisited the script. And by this time, just like a few years ago, immigration was a hot topic. And then I went to a party, Fourth of July party, and I listened to this kind of this guy who was got a bit drunk, and he started going on this rant about immigration, and I sort of listened to him, and I thought, interesting, yeah, maybe my guy is a bit like that in the beginning, and then he kind of can make a turn in the movie. So, and then I spoke to a writer, and same writer who did the original, and we started shaping the script, and then I got somebody to finance it.
Well, I love that you wanted to take that approach because it really is such a important topic in today's society. But I'm curious, playing that role, did you find that almost daunting or nerve-wracking in a way, given how detestable this character is at the start of the movie?
Yeah, I was aware of the fact that people get canceled for in for speaking like that. But on the other hand, it's only a movie, and I'm playing a character, and I just felt sort of as a director, like you have to be a little provocative to make people think and take notice, and otherwise, that's why that's why we're making art. So yeah, so once I got used to that, and I could find reasons why he is that way, and I think a lot of the reasons. Some of it is about his friendship with these other guys who are, kind of, sometimes when you're with your friends, they kind of keep you in a certain spot in your life. It's hard to get out of the box, and unless meet other people, and that's what happens to this guy. He ends up, meeting a bunch of other people, human beings that live in a different world than his, and he has to live in that world, and then he realizes, okay, well, maybe I was wrong about a few things. So it was actually interesting to play the guy.
Well, it's a very great arc that you play throughout. It really encapsulates both sides of what we've seen from you throughout the years, the villain and the hero, and I loved to watch it. What was it like assembling the cast around you then? Because I mean, they are just as vital to your character's arc, or to Johansson's arc, as they are to their own individual stories.
Well, thank you. I some of them, like for instance, Kelsey Grammer, I knew him from Expendables 3, and then I knew him socially, and then, we have some mutual friends. One guy who was actually my co-producer knows him as well, and he suggested Kelsey, and I wasn't sure at first, but then, I thought about it, and I thought, no, that's interesting, because, it's so against type for him. So that was him. That was that character worked, I thought. And then Michael Pere, I knew him from another picture I'd done. Some of the other characters, Rosa, I had a bunch of castings for that character, and I wanted somebody who speaks fluent Spanish, and who's kind of close to that life. And her family came over from Mexico, and also I've got people I know that have made that journey as well. So I kind of they're not in the movie, but I spoke to them as well about some of their experiences. But it was it was fun to work with that cast, and people were really into it. And they were excited about it, so it was good for me.
Who would you say was the easiest person to direct in this movie?
Well, everybody was easy. I mean, Kelsey obviously is extremely experienced, and he had a great take on the character, and he nails all his lines and everything in one take, and he's a real pro, and so he was certainly a real pleasure to work with. Yeah, I would say he was my the easiest guy to work with.
Well, I'm glad that you guys got to reunite because I do love him in this movie. Now there obviously we can't talk about this movie without the action, and I love that it feels somewhat subdued a little bit though. It's not explosive. It's not too many fist fights. It's very it plays to the story well, and I'm curious what that was like for you, being a legend in this genre, trying to find that right balance for this story.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, I try to stay with more reality where, your last thing you want to do is get in a fight with somebody, and if everybody's armed, you usually end up in a shootout before you end up using your fists, unless you're a boxer or an MMA guy. But in real life, it usually doesn't come to that. And also because of the budget, and I had pretty tough schedule, a short schedule, and so you're trying to get the most bang for your buck, and just try to shoot it in ways that feels realistic, but you don't have to make it too stylized. If it's too stylized, it takes too long to do. So that way, it's a little messy. And I think real life. What I've heard about real life combat and shootout, it's always messy. So I try to keep it that way.
Well, it plays out in that feeling then very well. Speaking of getting bang for your buck, though, was there any one sequence that proved the most challenging to put together?
I think physically for me was one tough sequence was the desert the desert road shootout, because I was directing and I was acting, and it was very hot. It was in the hundreds and on the desert road, and I was always being directing and acting. I always had to be out in the sun, and it was quite tiring, and crawling around under the vehicles, and that was a hard, tough sequence, because also our leading lady got injured. Some of the glass from the car windows got in her eyes, and so she couldn't work for part of it. And I only had so many days to do it. I think I had 3 days for the whole sequence, including the drive. So and then normal in a bigger movie that would be like a week or two. So it was hard work, really. Yeah.
Well, it's incredible how well you pulled it off then with that little of time. So kudos to you and your team for doing so. Before I let you go, I did want to ask a couple of questions outside of the movie as well. You've referenced the Expendables a few times. You just came back for 4. I was kind of surprised that the reaction was as it was from critics, given how fun the first 3 movies were. What was your initial reaction when you saw some of the reviews for this one?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, I didn't read the reviews because I kind of knew what they were going to say. Because that was that project had issues from the beginning, and it usually starts with a script. It really didn't really have a good script, and I'm not playing the lead, so it's hard for me to weigh in on some of those issues. But I know Stallone wasn't involved like he usually is. He just played a character in it, and when he's in charge, then the quality is going to be pretty good. It doesn't drop below a certain level, but he wasn't involved. So I think the problem was with the script, and then the director was replaced like a month before shooting. So between those two things, you end up, it's hard to make a really good movie. And I think it just, I also think that the originals, the first two, especially. It was kind of about the team. It was about a team effort, and some of that got lost. So, I was sad to see it go that way because 50 was in it. He was great. I had, and Megan Fox, and they were all good assets. That also the picture opened during the strike, which wasn't very clever. So they couldn't do any publicity. If you would have had a big star-studded premiere with Megan and 50 and Stallone and Statham and the rest of them, myself, whatever, that Andy Garcia, that would have there would have been more eyeballs on it, and I'm sure would have done better. But it's too bad. I was disappointed.
I can only imagine. And so, do you think then that if Stallone came back more in charge on a potential fifth movie, that you would be on board to return?
Yeah, if Sly's in charge, and I think he'd be working on his version of another pick, another chapter with these guys. If he's in charge, then yeah, I'm sure it would be fun to work on it. Yeah.
I'd love to see it. And then for my very final question before I let you go, you and Sly also worked on the first two or the second Creed movie. I mean, and even though Drago gets some semblance of peace by the end of the movie, I mean, do you think there's still stories to tell with him in that universe, especially now that Michael is at the helm for these movies?
Yeah, I think so. MGM was developing a script called Drago, but my character and my son. And what happened was, I think what happened was the studio changed leadership, and then Creed 3 did very well. So they started preparing for Creed 4. This is last year. And then now there's a problem with co-star in Creed 4. So I think, that storyline they had on the Drago script was interesting. I mean, it was kind of a coming to America, kind of immigration angle with me and the son, and it was pretty cool. And it just happened that we in Creed 2 we're in the Ukraine. We're actually in the beginning we're in Kiev. That's where the movie opens, even though it's not really mentioned too much, but in the version of the script that I read, it starts with a Russian invasion, and that's we go through some difficult experiences that makes us want to come to America. Anyway, it was kind of interesting.
Sounds like a really powerful script, and I truly hope you get the chance to explore it. Then I hope they find a way, because I mean, I can always watch more Drago, but even then, it sounds like it's got something good to tell. So in the meantime, though, I really look forward to spreading the word about Wanted Man, Dolph. I meant it when I said that this has got a lot to say and that you've done a great job. So thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg.